Okay, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the Dialogues workshop series on anti-racist music pedagogy and ethnomusicology, which is held in conjunction with the annual meeting of the Canadian Society for Traditional Music, that's CSTM. Oh. All right, so to start, I'd like to run a greeting from Julia Beal to start off the conference, and then we can start with the Dialogues workshop itself. So here we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Julia Bile, co-organizer for the Canadian Society for Traditional Music's first virtual conference, together with Daniela Duque. So it's most appropriate that this session on anti-racist pedagogies is what is actually opening our conference as well. The upcoming series of our events include paper panels, but also things like archival listening practices and a virtual house concert, which we've made free, accessible to anybody who wants to join. So we've probably put a link by now in the chat if you want to figure out what's going on. But this is done with the idea in mind that access really is one of the first crucial steps towards dismantling structural inequities. However, it's good to have this made explicit. And so this conversation that you are all having now between scholars, community knowledge holders, students, performers, and people who think of themselves as all of these, that this is the explicit framing that begins our event. So for providing that, we're very grateful to you all.
All right. So the series, the Dialogue series, is one initiative of a broader project entitled Dialogues, Decolonizing Sound, Music, and Dance Studies, founded by the Social Science and Humanities Research Council of Canada. The project is facilitated through a partnership between the International Council for Traditional Music, ICTM, and CSTM, with the support of the Center for Sound Communities at Cape Breton University, and the collaboration of numerous international scholars and students. This year's CSTM virtual conference is hosted by the University of Alberta, co-chaired by Dr. Julia Bile and Dr. Daniela Duque. My name is Toshio Oki, and I will be introducing the workshops and controlling the technical aspects of this series and moderating a couple of those as well. In this four-part roundtable workshop series, presenters will discuss various aspects and strategies that foster decolonization and anti-racism in classroom and non-classroom settings. We're excited to welcome presenters from around the world, offering their valuable perspectives on decolonization and anti-racist praxis from a global context. Each roundtable will begin with presentations of about between 15 minutes to 15 to 20 minutes. The presenters will introduce themselves before proceeding with their presentations. Once all the presentations have been completed and follow-up discussions between presenters are concluded, we will invite all of you to join in the conversation. Now, I'd like to proceed with today's session titled Dialogic Research as Dialogic Research as Praxis for Social Change, Perspectives from Malaysia and Brazil. And I'd like to invite Dr. Sooi Beng, Tan Sooi Beng, to introduce and facilitate the session.
Good morning, good night, everybody. We would like to thank the Center for Sound Studies and the Canadian Society for Traditional Music for the opportunity to share our experiences in developing anti-racist pedagogies in the Global South. This session addresses the need for university students to participate in dialogical research projects outside academia and in collaboration with communities of practice, NGO activists and artists, and school teachers and students. Through such projects, the students will be able to experience multiple kinds of knowledges, social concerns, and histories from below, as well as the potential of working with non-academics of different races on projects that can lead to social transformation and peace building. Inspired by the Brazilian educator Paulo Freire's pedagogy of raising awareness through collective inquiry, dialogue, and action, our Praxis calls for the creation of musical knowledges in inclusive and creative ways. I will begin by introducing the first two speakers from Malaysia. Then their videos will be played. Then we will talk a bit about some of the challenges we face to give you a short break from watching videos. This is followed by the next two videos from Samuel and Eduardo, who will introduce themselves in the videos. They will then discuss some challenges they face in the projects, and then we will open the floor for discussion. Yes. Right. So I am Tan Sooi Beng. I teach ethnomusicology at Universiti Sains, Malaysia. I have been involved in engaged arts among young people for the last 2 decades and involved my students as facilitators in the projects in the heritage city of Georgetown, where I live and work. My presentation today looks at the praxis of music of sound, the creation of music using everyday sounds, objects, and the human voice as a methodology that I pioneered to decolonize the Eurocentric music education in schools and universities and to bridge ethnic divide among the young people in Penang, Malaysia. The second presentation is by Chee, who is a senior lecturer at the Institute of Teacher Education in Penang. She has been facilitating music workshops for young people based on the methodology of music of sound, together with me since 2007. Chee has then brought the methodology to the teacher training colleges and schools in Malaysia. She shares her pedagogies in music of sound for student teachers, school teachers, and school children. Samuel Araujo will speak about dialogic research theory and methodology conceived in a favela of Rio de Janeiro, and Eduardo Duque on anti-racist musical pedagogies for Black children of Rio de Janeiro. Samuel tells me that it is a significant coincidence that 20th November, which is today in Malaysia and tomorrow for the Americas, is Black Consciousness Day, a day to honor the African diaspora nationwide in Brazil. Thank you. Toshio, can you play the two videos first? Thank you. Good morning, good evening, everyone. The title of my talk today is Music of Sound, Decolonizing Music, Bridging Ethnic Divide, and Co-creating a Sense of Place in Penang, Malaysia. Community music making is a form of musical intervention that can bring about social transformation in societies. This type of musical intervention involves the development of pedagogic approaches that emphasize participation, inclusion, and negotiation through dialogues at workshops run by facilitators. This presentation shows that community music workshops have the ability to bring about social cohesion among young people of different races that can lead to greater understanding, tolerance, and interaction in ethnically polarized societies. Community music workshops provide safe and neutral spaces where the young participants can co-create through dialogic methods that contribute towards peace building. Peace building by way of social cohesion is a dynamic process. For peace building to occur, we need to go beyond playing music together. The young participants must be engaged and empowered to become agents of change. I explore the strategies used in a community music approach known as music of sound or music bunyi-bunyian in Malay that I developed in the 1990s that encourages young people of different ethnic and social backgrounds in the multi-ethnic and multi-religious state of Penang to collectively create their own music based on the sounds of the environment. The term music of sound is a play on the film title The Sound of Music. I wanted to interrogate the term music that brings to mind Western classical or popular music in many post-colonial countries such as Malaysia. I also wish to decolonize the concept of music and show that anyone can make music from everyday sounds without expensive Western instruments, and that making music can be fun. I collaborated with my university students in the 1990s to try out the methodology. They were mainly theatre students who did not play Western instruments or have any training in Western classical music. I brought practitioners in to teach them traditional music such as gamelan and shadow theatre music, and introduce the music of sound to them. As you can see in the photographs attached, I introduced the elements of music to the students by using everyday objects, the voice, body percussion, and traditional instruments. I then took them out of the university for observation and collecting sounds from the environment, such as the busy street, the shopping malls, or dirty beaches. We co-created music of sound pieces and performed them at schools, including for the visually impaired, and ran workshops for school teachers. After 2000, I began to develop music of sound as a socially engaged or participatory arts practice, a kind of public art where participants and artists work with community groups with the aim of bringing about social change. It emphasizes the processes of making art through collaboration between the young participants and the community members in the city and university students. It promotes the recovery of cultural values, local knowledge, and sense of place. The approach is place-based and experiential. The participants conduct research about the living cultures, soundscapes, economic and cultural activities of the local people at specific sites. They observe and interact with people of different races and walks of life. I collaborated with my university students and other NGO artists. The process promotes cultural agency in society. The participants, artist facilitators, university students, and tradition bearers become agents for change. I have been influenced by the pedagogies of democratic movements that challenged autocratic regimes in Asia in the 1970s and 80s. For instance, PETA, the Philippines Educational Theatre Association, used the concept of local and integrated arts in their liberation theatre movements. Maya from Thailand used the arts such as puppet theatre for social mobilization and education. The critical pedagogy of Brazilian educator Paulo Freire is very important. Freire criticizes the banking concept of education, where the student is seen as an empty container to be loaded by the teacher. He emphasizes that this leads to the control of the minds and creativity of the students. Through the process of dialogue, students become conscientized and gain the means to challenge dominant national narratives. Dialogue activates students to struggle for social justice and transform their own societies. What are the strategies in music of sound as a type of socially engaged arts? It is important to understand the issues and problems in Georgetown, Penang at the turn of the millennium. First, racial polarization has occurred among the different ethnic groups as a result of political manipulation and preferential policies. And second, the repeal of the Rent Control Act, as well as urban development and gentrification for tourism in the heritage site of Georgetown, have led to the displacement of historical communities and the loss of sense of place and multicultural heritage among the young people. With the issues in mind, we ran workshops on music of sound that engage young people and communities in the city and university students to bridge cultural differences and recover a sense of place. I shall now play a few video clips that demonstrate the methodology of music of sound. It consists mainly of 3 phases: phase 1 and 2, skill learning; Phase 3, site-specific research, creative work composition, and workshop performances for the communities.
In the introductory workshop, games are used to introduce participants to each other and to promote interaction and team building.
Okay, face, punggok, Ready, everyone? One, two, three. Jalan-jalan supaya you all tahu jalan-jalan di sini. Tutup mata pun boleh jalan.
Heritage walks introduce participants to the multicultural heritage of Penang and sounds from the environment.
Originally, they all had tongkangs. They would take their tongkangs out and take the place here, and the little tongkangs from the jam would go out and bring in charcoal, I don't know, kinds of spices as well from there.
In phase 2 of the project, participants are introduced to the basic elements of music and the creative use of sounds of the environment to make music.
I want you to go back to your groups now, and now don't use the instrument, use your body part to play the same rhythm. Body part. Wait. Body part, not only like this, body can mean this one, can mean like this, can mean your friend.
Participants also learn to play traditional instruments and perform local musical genres such as gamelan and wayang kulit. They are exposed to street theatre and music of Penang such as Moria, Dondang Sayang, and Chinese chanting.
Di sana ciak popiah, ai kacang dan ais kacang.
By crossing ethnic borders, they learn to appreciate each other's cultures.
How do we promote social cohesion? We recruited young participants 10 to 19 years of age from schools in the city, from different gender, class, ethnic, and language backgrounds. We collaborated with multi-ethnic artists as facilitators and other stakeholders who provided space for rehearsals, interviews, and materials for the workshops. Some university students helped as facilitators. We created a safe and neutral space for intercultural dialogue and interaction, as the children were taken out of the school environment to the city for experiential learning. The open-air performances allow for wider inclusivity. Different races come together to watch the trans-ethnic performances.
shops are around here. What can you see around this shop? Apa yang boleh lihat di dalam Penang? Many bottles. Other than bottles? Fauzi? Pail. Where else? Above you? Behind you? Cardboard.
In Phase 3, participants then begin research and collecting sounds based on the multi-ethnic traditions, religions, and history of Penang. They create little musical pieces using the materials collected. Participants combine gamelan, wayang kulit, boria and Chinese chanting with sounds and movements collected during fieldwork. They create their own texts based on interviews with members of the community using Malay pantun or poetry and Chinese chant.
Participatory dialogic methodologies also helped in social cohesion. Creative processes such as games, improvisations, simulations, or brainstorming are used as tools for investigation, expression, or reflection. Divided into groups, they devise their own stories, music or dance, and collectively create a final script for performance. Involving participants in the activities and contribution of ideas and encouraging them to reflect, interact, and improvise lead to ownership over the content. Working intensively across race, religion, gender, class, and generation breaks barriers. The communities in the city who were interviewed are acknowledged and invited to watch the performances. Intercultural encounters and dialogues were encouraged across ethnic borders through the learning of different musics from the tradition bearers, juxtaposing cultural elements that incorporate Malay, Chinese, and Indian references through movements, sounds, and costumes, using musical instruments of different ethnic groups, mixing Malay, Hokkien, Tamil as in everyday conversations, and capturing hybridity in everyday interactions in the stories and lyrics. Music of Sound projects also experiment with different art forms such as the Malay puppet theatre. The participants made their own shadow puppets depicting scenes of Penang, as shown in the photographs above. A sense of place can promote social cohesion. The collection of folk songs and chants, sounds of everyday life, traits, stories of ordinary people, and memories of moments in history can create a sense of place and bring disconnected participants of different races together. An awareness of place can help participants reflect creatively on the past and present regarding relationships between different ethnic groups, cultural heritage, and environmental issues affecting them. By capturing hybridity in everyday interactions, the participants begin to understand and respect difference. A sense of place can lead to empathy. The young people also become aware of and empathize with the communities in the city regarding the issues affecting the latter, such as the displacement of traditional trades and crafts from the heritage enclave due to gentrification. For instance, one of the workshops on the Heritage Wet Market at Campbell Street, where the participants created music of sound excerpts based on interviews with the traders of the market and observation of daily activities, advocated for the importance of the Heritage Wet Market as the state was trying to close the market down. As you can see in the photographs, the musicians and dancers performed in front of vacated shop houses and included the interviews with shop owners who could not afford the high rentals. A good sense of place can foster a positive emotional attachment to a neighborhood and community that will lead to better participation for change.
To recall what has been learned, the children document their fieldwork experiences, sounds collected, heritage walks, and materials collected in individual folios. Evaluation sessions are held at the end of each lesson to review understanding and problems that might arise.
Different thing.
In conclusion, Music of Sound projects promote social cohesion and peace building. They provide neutral and safe spaces for people of different generations, gender, and race to make friends, learn about one another's cultures, interact, exchange, collaborate, and perform together. Through ensemble work and the creation of the music of others, the participants learn to cross ethno-religious barriers, appreciate their differences, and so build inter-ethnic peace. They experience perspectives and cultures other than their own. By so doing, they disassemble stereotypes that each ethnic group is linguistically and culturally monolithic, and that one's identity is fixed, as in official histories sanctioned by the state. Music of Sound projects provide an insight into local contemporary issues such as high rentals, moving of local communities out of the city, and loss of cultures. Music of Sound performances can create shared experiences and reinforce feelings of pride in the city and the desire to make the place better for living. Making cross-cultural art through research and ensemble work promotes sharing by the communities in the city and engagement and empathy of the participants. The issues raised in the workshop performances can help to transform the perceptions of public agencies and local authorities towards gentrification and regeneration of the city. Through these Dialogic collaborative projects, university and college students will be able to experience multiple kinds of musical knowledge, social concerns, and histories from below, as well as the potential of working with communities of practice on projects that can lead to social and cultural transformations. Terima kasih. Thank you. Kamsia.
A very good morning and good evening to everyone. The topic of my presentation is Music of Sound, Creative Expression Towards Meaningful Learning. This paper addresses the methodology of music of sound as platforms for creative expression across ethnic, cultural, and stylistic boundaries towards meaningful learning in formal youth education in Penang, Malaysia. Outline of the presentation encompassed music of sound in formal education, demographic profile of participants, approaches and strategies used in the methodology of music of sound, and music of sound methodology towards developing musical knowledge and skills, as well as appreciation of cultural diversity. Music of sound in formal music education. Methodology of music of sound was introduced to all student teachers in the 27 campuses across Malaysia in the Arts Education module published by the Malaysian Institute of Teacher Education in 2015. In 2018, the methodology of music of sound was introduced to all student teachers taking music as an elective in the course entitled Creative Activities in Music Education. The methodology was also adapted in the Teaching and Learning Malaysian Music Appreciation classes in the Institute of Teacher Education, Penang, since 2010. In 2019, student teachers in Penang campus began to apply the methodology of music of sound to primary school children to enhance their appreciation towards music making collectively. The methodology of music of sound was also conducted as studies to form 2 multi-ethnic students in 3 different schools in different districts in Penang. Methodology is in tangent with some of the aspirations for the Malaysian education system and Malaysian students, such as fostering unity through interacting with individuals from a range of social, economic, religious, and ethnic background to understand, accept, and embrace differences, and encouraging students to develop their knowledge and skills in other areas such as music, arts, sports, besides mastering core subjects to be equipped with a rounded general knowledge. In E9 Malaysian Education Blueprint 2013 to 2025. Student teachers in the Institute of Teacher Education, Penang, comprise both male and female students aged 20 to 21 years old. Students are multi-ethnic, such as Malay, Chinese, and Indians, as well as other ethnic groups from Sabah and Sarawak, Kadasan, Iban, and others. Most of the Chinese and Indian students attended vernacular primary schools, where Mandarin and Tamil are primary medium of instruction from year 1 to year 6, aged 7 to 12 years old. The Malays, as well as other ethnics in Sabah and Sarawak, attended the National Primary School, where the school's curriculum emphasizes the national language of Bahasa Malaysia from year 1 to year 6, aged 7 to 12 years. All the students, teachers enrolled in the national secondary schools in Form 1 to Form 5, aged 13 to 17 years. The Form 2 students in the case studies are from 3 different schools in 3 districts in Penang. The 14 years old, both male and female students are from multi-ethnic background comprising Malay, Chinese, and Indians. Most of the Chinese and Indian students attended vernacular primary schools, and the Malay student attended the national primary schools from year 1 to year 6, aged 7 to 12 years. All the students attended the national secondary schools from Form 1 to 5, aged 13 to 17 years. Homogeneous environments in the primary schools make it more challenging for the multi-ethnic student teachers and students in schools to be exposed to different cultures and ethnic groups and to develop an appreciation for cultural diversity. Although the convergence of students from the different types of primary schools to the national secondary school, ethnic stratification is still prevalent as the students tend to mix more freely with their own ethnic group. Most of the student teachers and children in schools do not have formal musical training. Initial survey demonstrated that creative expression is the least nurtured among the musical aspects taught in the Northern Peninsula schools in Malaysia. Most music teachers have not explored creating music composition based on the musical concepts such as using non-musical checks. The common instructional strategies used by the school's music teachers in creative expression are writing lyrics, 33.4%, and writing rhythmic patterns, 40%, till 2012. According to Gardner, 2006, page 155, musical experience is instrumental in developing musical skills and abilities. What are the 21st century pedagogical approaches and strategies used in the methodology of music of sound in creative expression to develop musical knowledge and skills, as well as appreciation of cultural diversity? The methodology of music of sound encompasses approaches and strategies used from multiple intelligences pathways. The methodology of music of sound encourages partnerships and working together using 21st century approaches such as experiential and collaborative learning, as well as strategies from multiple entry points based on Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, till 2017. A smart partnership is formed by grouping participants of different ethnicity, gender, abilities, and personalities knowledge to work as an ensemble. The methodology encompassed collaborative and experiential learning from multiple pathways. Experiential learning is defined as a process where knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. Cobb and others, 1999, in Steinberg and Sains, 2000. Experiential approach enables the participants to explore and interact directly with the materials that embody or convey the concept in a concrete form. Gardner, 2006. For example, experiential approach enables the participants to explore and interact directly with the materials such as daily objects to learn about the musical concepts such as rhythm, pitch, and tone colors. Collaborative approach, on the other hand, enables joint intellectual efforts, sharing of authority, and acceptance of responsibility among group members through discussions, clarifications of ideas, and evaluation of others' ideas. As said by Clifford, 2011, working as an ensemble enables the individual to attain higher level thinking and preserve information for longer times. Gardner, 1999, conceptualized intelligence as a computational capacity that entails the ability to solve problems and fashion products that are of consequence in one or more cultural settings. Gardner, 2000 and 2006, proposed project scaffolding from multiple entry points to provide an opportunity for children to marshal previously mastered concepts and skills in the service of acquisition in new challenges. Strategies used in music of sound to empower the participants in creative expression from multiple intelligences entry points include dramatic, narrative, logical thinking, and musical experience in creating soundscapes of the environment, as well as acquiring skills in playing gamelan instruments and other traditional instruments, experiencing the natural world through field trips and aesthetic presentation through visual arts, music making, movements, and performing local art forms collectively. So 2019. Participants were given the artistic freedom to recreate diverse traditional and contemporary music traditions, such as songs, ethnic poems, raps, and local popular street genres such as the Malay Boria, Dikir Barat, and Chinese chants, as well as creative gamelan performances across ethnic, cultural, and stylistic boundaries, reflecting issues, stories, or themes of their specific performances. The whole process of creating is oriented according to the participants' interest and intelligences capacities from multiple intelligences pathways. For example, in the language pathways, participants with linguistic prowess from different ethnicity marshaled quadrants of artistic verses against a set rhyming scheme to melodies, rap, chants, and local street genres such as the Malay Boria and Dikir Barat, or stories collected in multilingual forms through collaborative and experiential learning. Through the musical and logical pathways, participants with musical capacities generate their own music and songs, exploring the basic rhythm, elements of rhythm, tempo, pitch, and tone colors to create soundscape collected from their field trips or teams using daily objects, voice, and body percussion. Group improvisation are encouraged in developing creativity, using these materials and playing traditional ensembles to accompany the movements and artistic rendition performed by their friends. In kinesthetic pathways, participants with kinesthetic capacities guided the friends in transforming daily actions and elements from ethnic cultures into rhythmic movements. In the visual pathways, budding visual artists crafted props to conjure up mental images of various themes to depict their performances. Now, I would like to share with all of you video clips of student, teachers, and children creative performances across cultural, ethnic, and stylistic boundaries. There are 5 sections in this video clip. The first section shows student teachers performing creative gamelan and local street genres such as Malay Boria and Duque Barat. In the next section, we will be watching student teachers exploring musical concepts using daily objects and creative expression in teaching and learning their respective subjects in arts education workshop. In the third section, the elective students showed their performance of understanding of the musical concepts by creating themes such as construction sites, forest, using daily objects, voice and body parts, as well as songs and chant in various languages through online performances in creative activities in music education. In the fourth section, we will be watching students in a primary school performing Duque Barat to show their performance of understanding in learning science. And in the last section, we will be watching Chinese chant and dance performed by the secondary school students.
Siapa mencuri jam tangan Lili, lebih baik anda sekarang mengakui. Kalau tidak cikgu akan membuat spot-check. Siapa 是你吗？为什么还不承认？janganlah berbohong。 datang dari Bukit Cina. Dulu sangat susah. Sekarang kehidupan jiho liao lo.
The evaluation from questionnaires, students' reflection, and focus group interviews demonstrated that music of sound methodology contributes towards developing musical knowledge and skills, as well as appreciation of cultural diversity among the student teachers and children in schools. The methodology developed musical knowledge, understanding of musical concepts among the participants. Post-tests conducted in the case studies showed that there is an increase in understanding of the musical concepts. Most of the students somewhat agreed that they are able to create rhythmic patterns using different pitches and tone colors. Students' reflection showed that they understand and remember the musical concept through exploring and applying it in their musical performances using body parts, daily objects, and voice. Besides, the methodology also developed musical skills and an interest in music making. Students in focus group interviews testified that their friends who do not have interest in music and knowledge in playing gamelan began to show interest in learning, and they are able to play musical instruments such as the bonang and gendang, the Malay drum, in the gamelan ensemble, as well as creating music using daily objects after following the Music of Sound workshop. Multi-ethnic students, teachers in their reflections showed that they developed appreciation towards the diverse culture and performing arts in Malaysia. Through ensemble performances, they gained profound understanding of the local street genres such as Boria and Dikir Barat, and developed interest to further research on the art forms. Besides, multi-ethnic students in school also realized that everyone can play the various ethnic ensembles. For example, everyone can play the gamelan as an ensemble, and it is not strictly designed to be played by the Malays only. The methodology also inculcates unity in appreciating diversity and sharing of responsibilities. Multi-ethnic participants from the Institute of Teachers Education and Schools unanimously agreed that collaborative learning enhanced their relationship with each other and fostered closer ties among the different ethnics. They began to mix and understand each other better, and they are able to work and cooperate as a team. As said, they like creating a fusion together because they can see all the students from the different ethnics engaged, working together harmoniously to create a piece. As a conclusion, rich and creative experiences via multiple representations across ethnic, cultural, and stylistic boundaries develop insights, musical knowledge, and musical skills, serves as venues to enhance the participants' appreciation towards local popular performance genres in Malaysian music and inculcate the value of lifelong learning experience. Inculcate invaluable learning experiences in appreciating cultural diversity and sharing of responsibilities, as well as fostering unity by understanding, accepting, and embracing differences. Participants also gained self-confidence from appreciating his or her best learning abilities from multiple pathways in a positive and creative learning environment. It also increased active participation and motivation levels among the multi-ethnic participants. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for the blackout and black dots on the videos, but we will use the originals that don't have these black dots for distribution later. Yeah. So Laishi and I have been discussing about how we have run Music of Sound for the past 2 decades. Yeah. And just a bit about what are the challenges that we face. Yeah. So for me, we used to run the workshops from 3 to 6 months, and the students will come every weekend, yeah, you know, to run through the different workshops, to do field research, and to create music, so they can internalize all the music, you know, within 3 to 6 months. We took them out of the schools, you know, to save neutral spaces, yeah, so they can express themselves more freely outside of the schools. And we could do this in the past because I think the children did not have so many activities, and they did not have the internet to play with, and they could come every weekend. But in recent times, you know, it is very, very difficult to get children to come during weekends because they've got tuition and they've got to go and learn other things. And their parents have to take them somewhere, and so on and so forth. So we have had to cut down on the length of the workshops, and we began to run intensive workshops during the school holidays. So if the school holidays last 2 weeks, then the kids will come for, you know, 2 weeks every day for the whole day, yeah. But it is not as satisfactory as if they can come for 3 to 6 months. We also reach very small numbers of children for each project, yeah, because if the projects run 3 to 6 months, we can only run 1 project a year, and each project, you know, we can have a maximum of 30 people, yeah. So the numbers are small. So I think bringing the methodology to the schools through school teachers and what Chee is doing now will be more sustainable. So Chee, would you like to, you know, discuss a bit about some of the challenges that you face in the schools?
Okay, thank you. I think one of the main challenge here is like to get my participants, especially the student teachers, they are from different ethnic background, and basically they don't really understand each other. They are not exposed to each other's cultures. And besides that, most of them has different interests. Not everybody is interested in music. And another thing is that attitude towards music. Most of them, they do not have formal musical training. And the one with formal musical training, they are more interested in Western musical cultures. They are not so interested in playing Malay instruments. They are not so interested to know what is Dikir Barat about. They are not so interested to know what is Wayang Kulit about. They are more interested to play Western classical music, to play piano music, classical music. So this is one of the challenge to get them to come in, to get interested, and to create their own music. This is one of the main challenges that I faced. And another challenge is to get them together to create soundscape. They have no experience what is soundscape and how to create a soundscape. This is because when they are in the primary schools, most of the time they are taught to create a rhythm, and then they use the rhythm to accompany a simple song, children's song, and using non-musical object. Now to use the non-musical object to explore the different parts of the object, to get the different color tones, and to create back environment that they have visited, it is a big challenge for them, and they need a lot of guidance and sharing with them a lot of videos of our past projects that we have done together with Prof. Tan, and then showing a lot of examples. And after that, then only they get an idea, and slowly we guide them and then to get it done. And then besides that, to get them transfer the whole methodology to the school children is also another challenge. They may have known how to create by themselves, but how to impart the knowledge to go back to the children is a challenge. So I have to go down to the field together with them and conduct the methodology together with them, so that they can see how it is. And then only they guide the children, and we actually collaborated and worked together with the student teachers. I did not let them go down by themselves and work, because it cannot work. So I have to go down and guide them and help them And finally, we are able to come up with something so that they also learn from it, the students also learn from it. And then another challenge that I faced is recently conducting music of sound workshop online because of the pandemic is a very big challenge, because we have workshops for more than 100 over participants, all online, and imagine to get them to work in small groups and creating short pieces. It's very, very noisy and it's very difficult to do it. Although they go into their breakout rooms, so finally we get them into their own partnerships, smart partnerships, their small groups, and we ask each of them to record their own line, and they group together, and we come back again in the next session where they present it and then we comment on it. These are basically a few of the challenges that I faced.
Okay, thank you very much, Chee. If you all have questions, then we will answer them during the Q&A session, yeah. Because I think Chee raised a lot of challenges, yeah, that many of us face anyway, wherever we are because of the pandemic. All right, let's continue with the next two videos, Toshio.
Hello, everyone. I'm Samuel Araujo, professor of ethnomusicology at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, where I also coordinate the Ethnomusicology Laboratory, a research unit comprising other faculty members, researchers in other institutions, students, graduate, undergraduate, and also high school students under different scholarships, cultural activists, artists, and all sorts of volunteers who take interest in the issues we research. These issues are usually tied to some historical problems in the configuration of Brazil as a political entity. These problems are related to imbalances in power relations that have to do with some of the huge socioeconomic disparities in Brazil in different historical stages. And these imbalances are being sustained by some sort of stable violent processes which involve some physical violence and some degree of institutional violence as well. And some of these issues are very familiar to all of you. One of them is the axis of this series, racism, namely, and but also misogyny, LGBTQIA plus phobia, and all sorts of imbalances in power relations in Brazil. And the hallmark of our research is to resort to dialogic and participatory research protocols, mainly the ones derived from the work of Brazilian educator Paulo Freire, well known across the world, and also developed by Colombian sociologists, the ones developed by Colombian sociologist Orlando Fals Borda. And I'll talk a little bit about them in this presentation. Here we have sort of a condensed version of my argument. So the notions of dialogue, collaboration, co-authorship with some of these research subjects I already mentioned, the activists, the artists, the institutional researchers, and so on and so forth. These are epistemological dimensions that have been part of anthropological work and ethnomusicological work since the 19th century. This is an argument put forward by North American anthropologist Eric P. Lasseter former president of the AAA, the American Anthropological Association, and who has 2 books on collaborative ethnography, in which he highlights the ideas of self-research, co-authorship, promotion of self-esteem, and a new research ethics as part of the program, so to speak, of collaborative ethnography. Well, now I'll bring forward the ideas of Paulo Freire and Orlando Falsborda of how to promote this collaboration, more horizontal collaboration. Freire's idea of pedagogy of autonomy, which was sort of formulated in his most influential book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, a book launched, whose first edition was released in 1970 and has been translated to many languages across the world. And also the ideas put forward by Orlando Falsborda, Colombian sociologist, his ideas of participatory action research, or PAR, as it is well known in English language sources. And then we'll have some confluent notions with what Lasseter considers to be collaborative ethnography: self-research, co-authorship, attention to the epistemic consistence of locally formulated concepts, the production of knowledge in and on conflict, right? The mediation between knowledges, the role of the researcher, the academic researchers, and mediating between these different sources of knowledge, both the communal ones and also the academic ones. The formation of local agents in reflexive action, right? So multiplying this idea of participatory action research as sort of a community resource, right? And not only as some sort of some new form of research in the ivory tower of universities and institutionally acknowledged forms of research. Another interesting topic that they bring to our discussion, both Paulo Freire and Orlando Falsborda, is the reform of institutions from within. So one of the hot topics nowadays in the study of music, the decolonization of music institutions, of music education, and so on and so forth, would be one possibility in the case of applying the pedagogy of autonomy, the dialogic pedagogy of Freire, or in our case, and participatory action research protocols put forward by Orlando Falsborda and his associates. Another one is the creation of new institutions, as happened in ethnomusicology in Australia, for instance, in the 1970s, with the creation of CASM, the Center for Aboriginal Studies of Music, CASM, in the University of Adelaide in Australia. And to make possible that music studies and music research contribute to some degree to more encompassing forms of social change. So these are, in a nutshell, the ideas that these protocols can contribute to broader social transformation. Here is an idea that in our particular work at the community of Maré, Rio de Janeiro's second large favela, slum area that comprises about 150,000 people who live there, right? And we have been doing participatory action research, dialogical research in this community for about 20 years. And this started in 2003, and we came to this formulation of what to do there. An articulation between verbal, sound praxis, that's how we call it, articulating between verbal and non-verbal discourses, actions, and policies concerning sound, as they present themselves oftentimes in subtle or imperceptible ways in the daily life of individuals, and we exemplify some of them here, collectives, just the same, and institutions, enterprises, unions, governmental agencies, or NGOs, community councils, schools, and others. Here, I try to highlight what are the roles of residents in the research activities. They are not the conventional figures of informants, but they transcend dichotomies such as object and subject, practice and theory, material and immaterial aspects of reality, and also this age-long dichotomy in the field of ethnomusicology and anthropology as well, between field and lab, right? The field being the place or the space where the empirical work is done, and the lab, the one in which the more reflexive work is done. And here we have another strategy that is a hallmark of all this work. This highly eclectic, I should say, research group participates in the formulation of the research problems, right? So in the strategic decision-making, this is a collective process as well, how to answer the research problems or to look for answers to the research problems posed in the field. The idea of action reflection, right? And so this is the way how we do by promoting festivals with local artists, by participating, sometimes playing, composing, and creating new groups within the community in the course of our actions. And this is all accomplished through collective processes, right? Collective discussions, collecting decision-making, and so on and so forth. In the course of these activities, one very interesting development is the creation of archives. Here we'll have a small sample of what we have in our archives. These publications and books, including an article in the book Music and Conflict that you can see in the slide, are produced by the Musicultura group itself, right? So Musicultura now is a reference in ethnomusicology world over by these publications, mainly the ones in English language for obvious reasons. And so here is a small flash also of the work of Musicultura. We have a headquarters within the community where we develop all these ideas and so on, and write publications and for publications. and also participate, as it is highlighted here, Professor Anthony Seeger, among the members of Musicultura in one of the encounters, the 2006 national encounter of the Brazilian Association for Ethnomusicology. Here is one of the main results of this work, a collaboration of Musicultura with local groups within Maré, the area we have been researching for 20 years or so. Sorry. And this is a carnival group, a new carnival group that has also an activist proposal, right? And this has been happening since 2005. So Musicultura started its meetings and its activities in 2004. 1 year afterwards, this group was created. Here are some of our references, Osborne, Freire, and now Musicultura itself has a relatively huge output of academic works, the work of Lasseter, and the work of Maria Eugenia Londoño Fernandez, a Colombian ethnomusicologist, not well known in our field and so on, but who was one of the pioneers alongside with Catherine Ellis in Australia in using PAR strategies in ethnomusicology. And now I will end my presentation, and I will leave you with a short clip of the Sibenzikda Carnival group created in 2005 through a collaboration of Musicultura and several other communal institutions and activists in the space of Maré, Rio de Janeiro. And you have a sense of how these anti-hegemonic strategies have worked, particularly in this research activity we have been developing since 2004.
Olá a todos, meu nome é Eduardo Duque, sou graduado em licenciatura em Educação Artística e Habilitação Música pela Universidade Federal do Rio de Janeiro, pós-graduado em Musicologia das Práticas Musicais pelo Programa de Pós-Graduação em Música da Universidade Federal do Rio de Janeiro, com a dissertação O Pulo do Gato, Reflexões de um Pesquisador Nativo sobre uma Escola de Samba Carioca. Fui orientado pelo professor Dr. Samuel Araujo. Sou professor de artes da Secretaria Estadual de Educação do Rio de Janeiro, atuando no segundo ano do ensino médio do Colégio Estadual Professor Clovis Monteiro. Sou também professor de música da Secretaria Municipal de Educação do Rio de Janeiro, atuando no ensino Fundamental 2 da Escola Municipal Jornalista e Escritor Daniel Pisa. Sou cavaquinista, sou violonista, arranjador e produtor, atuante em rodas de samba do subúrbio do Rio de Janeiro, o grande candomblé, membro da direção colegiada, orientador pedagógico e diretor musical do Grêmio Recreativo Escola de Samba Mirim Coração Batuqueiro. Pedagogias musicais antirracistas para crianças do Rio de Janeiro. Falar sobre educação antirracista é, antes de mais nada, descolonizar o pensamento. Mas quando se descoloniza o pensamento, o que ocupa o lugar dos valores e das filosofias coloniais? Coração Batuqueiro é um espaço de resistência frente aos avanços de grupos religiosos neopentecostais que promovem perseguições às religiões e à cultura de matriz africana, que promovem o apagamento e a demonização da cultura do samba. É um espaço de resistência frente ao racismo estrutural. É um espaço de acesso à cultura e ao lazer. É um espaço de acolhimento para as crianças pretas que possam estar ou não em perigo social. E, principalmente, pretende ser um espaço de reflexão e educação racial antirracista através da música. Temos oferecido oficinas de percussão de escola de samba, oficinas de percussão geral, pandeiro, tantã, repique de mão, entre outros instrumentos usados nas rodas de samba. Oficina de violão, oficina de cavaquinho, oficina de customização de roupas e oficina de passistas e mestres-salas e porta-bandeira.
Foda.
Eu tava voltando pra lá. Tá voltando, né? Eu fiz a voltei pra cá. Me certa daqui. Voltar pra cá.
Não, pra cá. Daqui pro boda, aqui, ó. Não é?
Vai de novo.
Daqui, ó.
Não, mas ficou maneiro, tá bom, Beng, tá bom, Beng.
Tu errou, né? E não quer assumir.
Eu falei, você sei que
É
você tá
isso.
certo. Eu falei,
Tu errou e não quer assumir.
eu sei que você tá certo. Então tá, vamos
Eu sei que você
voltar.
tava errado. Pensa de mesma maneira.
Vai do começo.
1, 2, 3 e...
Todas essas oficinas visam formar e preparar as crianças para o desfile. Dentro do processo de construção do desfile, temos a oportunidade de dialogar, de provocar reflexões e observar as mudanças comportamentais dos jovens ao longo de sua inserção no projeto, e replanejar e reorientar as atividades para aprofundar as reflexões. Coração Batuqueiro tem como objetivo retomar o poder da narrativa, recontar as histórias a partir de uma visão que entende e questiona a posição imposta ao povo preto dentro da sociedade colonial. Foi através de processos de pesquisa e reflexão de autores que analisam a complexa trama social na qual o povo preto na diáspora está inserido, é que chegamos aos 7 princípios que celebram a chamada Cauanza. O nome Cauanza deriva da expressão Motunda e a Cauanza, que significa primeiros frutos em Swahili, a língua original mais falada entre as centenas que existem na África. A festa dos primeiros frutos é típica dos povos ancestrais. A origem do Natal cristão seria uma celebração desse tipo, a festa da vitória da vida contra a morte, da luta contra as trevas, da colheita farta que garantia a continuidade da tribo contra a ameaça da fome e do extermínio. A pessoa é uma pessoa por causa de outras pessoas. Umuntu Nagaba Bantu. Ubuntu foi o primeiro conceito filosófico africano que tivemos contato. Ele foi muito difundido pelo movimento de luta contra o apartheid na África do Sul nos anos 90 e simplificadamente interpretado como eu sou porque nós somos. Ubuntu significa eu sou porque somos todos nós. Cauanza é uma resposta à invisibilidade do calendário preto ao longo da história dos Estados Unidos. A representação cultural dos afro-americanos não se refletiu nos feriados e rituais do país. Os 7 princípios representam coisas concretas que podemos fazer para honrar nossa comunidade, fortalecer nosso conhecimento, apoiar negócios de minorias e compartilhar nossa história. E junto com o Ubuntu Sabá, representa os valores essenciais intrínsecos para a comunidade e a cultura africana. Umoja, unidade, lutar e buscar por união, raça, família, comunidade e nação. Permanecer juntos, trabalhar juntos, vivenciar bons e maus momentos. Como desenvolver unidade? Levando em conta os atravessamentos que a diáspora impõe. As divisões, direita, esquerda, feminismo, diferenças sociais, individualismos, etc. Dialogar, acertar e entender as diferenças históricas, contextos, decisões e posicionamentos, aparar as arestas, minimizar as diferenças, olhar para o outro, escutar, se preocupar com ele, solidarizar-se, desenvolver a empatia e principalmente entender e pôr em prática o Ubuntu. Dialogar e Ubuntu são investimentos, principalmente de tempo, no processo de entender, de se comunicar e principalmente escutar ativa e atentamente o que o outro tem para nos dizer, para nos comunicar, para dividir, para compartilhar. Kujishagulha, autodeterminação. Falar por nós mesmos, governar nosso destino, tomar o comando e protagonizarmos. Autodeterminação tem relação direta com autoconfiança. Então a questão primordial é como desenvolver a autoconfiança, elevar a autoestima, como conduzirmos nossa vida, nossa comunidade. O princípio básico é perseverança, persistência. Nesse sentido, é extremamente importante estudar os itãs e, através dele, entender que a força e a energia dos orixás cultuados pelo candomblé e religiões de matriz africana, a assertividade, o que se faz certo, eleva a autoconfiança. A certificar-se está diretamente relacionado ao projeto o planejamento e a organização que, por sua vez, se faz em conjunto. A autodeterminação está relacionada à motivação, à energia que nos movimenta, que nos tira da inércia, que nos impulsiona. Motivados e imbuídos dessa energia, nos sentimos determinados, autodeterminados a realizar. Undima, trabalho coletivo e responsabilidade. Responsabilidade tem relação com cuidado, atenção, afeto. Ser responsável é, antes de tudo, investir tempo. Trabalhar coletivamente é dividir tarefas, é construir juntos, é entender que a solução dos problemas será encontrada mais facilmente em coletivo. É entender que o trabalho coletivo é mais eficiente exatamente porque é feito com cuidado, com afeto. Esse princípio está diretamente ligado aos dois anteriores. Para trabalhar coletivamente, temos que estar juntos, unidos. Temos que confiar em nós. Temos que acreditar que somos capazes. Temos que confiar no outro, motivá-lo e incentivá-lo. O Jama, economia cooperativa. Este princípio, para mim, é o mais complexo de todos, pois envolve poder. Dinheiro é poder. E envolve valor, nos dois sentidos que a palavra pode ter. É uma prática que no tempo da escravidão funcionava. Pretos forros ou libertos compravam a liberdade à alforria de outros pretos, segundo os interesses da comunidade. Não sei como isso se perdeu. Sei que as dificuldades econômicas do povo preto se faz necessário retomar esse princípio. Hoje em dia, comprar a liberdade pode ser substituído por subsidiar a formação, por exemplo. Inicio essa reflexão questionando: como, o que gastamos? Tem algum preto que venda o que eu preciso comprar? Como nos organizar de forma moderna para usufruir bens de consumo que a sociedade disponibiliza, fazendo o dinheiro circular entre nós? Não tenho resposta para nenhuma das perguntas, mas acredito que enquanto o objetivo for a ascensão e o enriquecimento individual ou pontual de um preto ou outro que se destaca, permaneceremos pobres e sem poder. Falta uma ou mais metas nítidas que atendam ao interesse de um grande grupo. Ao mesmo passo que a meta dada se coloca como norte para onde devemos caminhar, ela também motiva, funciona como mola propulsora para se chegar, para se atingir o que queremos. Este princípio está ligado aos anteriores, de forma incisiva e considerando que, nos dias de hoje, tudo tem um preço, que é a régua que mede o mundo, é o poder econômico, e que a chave que abre as portas estão igualmente ligadas ao poder econômico, e, consequentemente, ao poder de forma macro. Ter dinheiro é importante. O acesso aos bens culturais, cinemas, shows, livros, teatro, saúde, educação, lazer e subsistência, de um modo geral, está ligado às condições econômicas. Se não tem dinheiro, não tem acesso. Agora, como cooperativar o lucro? A resposta, acredito que os antigos já deram. Basta nós olharmos para trás e utilizarmos os fazeres dos antigos que vai dar tudo certo. Nia, propósito, significa cumprir nossa missão coletiva, a construção e o desenvolvimento de nossa comunidade. Pôr em prática aquilo que até agora era teoria. E para iniciar uma ação efetiva, se faz necessário olhar para si. Esse olhar busca identificar quais são as minhas habilidades, busca identificar algo que eu faça bem, que somado com as habilidades dos meus irmãos e irmãs, vai abrir o caminho para impulsionar o desenvolvimento da comunidade. Há aqui uma intenção de fazer bem o que se propõe fazer, de estar juntos dos seus, uma vontade de superar os desafios impostos, inspirando confiança, expirando confiança, autocontrole e uma vontade de trabalhar para fazer a comunidade crescer. O espírito da intimidade dedica atenção especial ao propósito. Um capítulo descrevendo como é o processo de atribuição do propósito a cada indivíduo que nasce na tribo de Dagara. Resta uma questão dentro desse contexto em que vivemos diaspórico e atravessado. Como descobrir o nosso propósito? Kumba, criatividade, construção, desenvolvimento e melhorias só se dão a partir de novas soluções. Soluções que sejam eficazes na manutenção, no sentido de se manter e no sentido de se consertar o que foi construído, assim como desenvolver novas soluções para os problemas novos e antigos. Assim como no princípio Nia, a Kumba é também colocada a serviço da comunidade. Teremos como uma das essências possíveis desse princípio a atitude de não ficar reclamando, lamuriando dos problemas que temos para resolver. O sentido da criatividade é ativo, é reativo. Buscar soluções é a mola propulsora, movimento, Exu. Sair da atitude eurocêntrica do pensador elocubrador e se pôr em movimento. Imane, fé, acreditar em nós e nos nossos. Tudo que nós tem é nós. É uma frase do Emicida, um rapper brasileiro. Nós por nós mesmos. Eu sou porque nós somos. Todas essas frases têm um principal objetivo de inculcar nas mentes e nos corações que devemos acreditar uns nos outros. Não há possibilidade de progresso sem fé, que é a mais poderosa das energias e, mesmo sendo apresentado como o sétimo princípio, está em sintonia com o primeiro. Está em todos os princípios. De modo geral, os princípios têm essa interligação, que se torna fácil a identificação da fé em todos os princípios. A aplicabilidade dos conceitos filosóficos apresentados se dá nas aulas, nas oficinas, nas apresentações, nos eventos ou em qualquer oportunidade onde a reflexão e o questionamento possa ser feito para se dialogar e continuar o processo de construção da escola de samba mirim sobre novas bases e estruturas, sempre alinhado com o pan-africanismo diaspórico.
Thank you both, Samuel and Eduardo. Would you like to comment a little bit about the challenges that you face, while running these two projects? Samuel, would you like to start first?
Yeah. Well, Eduardo is also ready to explain his wonderful presentation too. He'll take questions and I will translate them. But the first question came from my dear colleague, Sooi Beng. We have been exchanging ideas and practices together for quite a while now, since at least 2007, when we finally came to know one another. I mentioned in my presentation, Orlando Falsborda, this powerful sociologist, one of the main proponents of PAR, participatory action research, and Paulo Freire, well known around the world. His most famous book, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, has 50 English translations, right? And so these people worked alongside the timeline, a similar timeline, without knowing each other, without knowing they were doing similar things both in Colombia and Brazil. Can you imagine that? So the first question by my dear colleague Sooi Beng goes directly to the point. She asks me if I could tell how the project has been integrated into the university curriculum. I would say, well, it has been integrated by force, you know, as far as we have somehow been able to publish articles. The first one is co-signed by Eduardo, by the way, right? In ethnomusicology, this is the first multiply signed article in ethnomusicology, a practice which is very common, highly common in other areas. Several researchers and so on to co-author a research article in one of the main journals of our field. It was the first time in 2006, you know, and that was co-signed by myself and Eduardo and other 14 co-authors, right? And so I would say that as far as this work has also been reported in academic journals all over the world right now, Musicultura became sort of a staple in ethnomusicological meetings all over the world. It has been integrated by force. I mean, this is not something that the university curriculum likes to have in it, you know, but some other forces of, for instance, the capitalist drive for internationalization of knowledge production and so on has made of Musicultura one of the mainstays of our graduate program in my university. No other single researcher in my graduate program has the same international publications, records that Musicultura has. Eduardo himself has at least 3 or 4 internationally diffused research articles. With Musicultura, he was one of the mainstays of all this work. And I'll pass to the second question by Ellen Waterman. Nice to meet you, Ellen. This is the first time I recall we have an exchange. And she says, I'm struck by the long-term work that you have all been engaged in. I said, well, for about 20 years or so. Decades of projects, long-term projects and concept building. Can you speak of the changes you have experienced in this work over time? No, I cannot speak of the changes and challenges we have experienced in the few minutes we have to explain that, but they have been many. And thank you very much, Ellen, because your question allows me to explain this. A basic explanation, we can go further, we should go further in our conversation. This is not a single project, right? This is a series of projects as far as the community has new goals, new research questions. Participatory action research, dialogic research functions on the basis of community demands. We are not the formulators of the research questions. We're not. But we are very attentive to the way the community's research questions or research issues are in line with some of the research issues the, let's say, institutionally acknowledged academics also have, right? And in this fashion, this more horizontal collaboration, it's not something that derives, let's say, naturally from desire, right? It is a political concept building that we have to come to an equalizing the community interests with the institutional academic interest. And the changes have been, another thing that I should make clear is that, so in the case of this work I reported here, the research projects themselves have changed over time, right? I guess this is one of the senses of your question. And how is it done? The first research issue that the community presented us, how Carnival had disappeared from the streets of Maré, right? Eduardo was there. How Carnival can disappear from a favela community of Brazil, of Rio de Janeiro, a city that has its world image built upon a carnival that was conceived by Rio de Janeiro's favelas. How can Carnival disappear from the streets of the favelas, right? This was the research question that came. Eduardo was there, and many people that appeared in the video playing Geandra, Certo Eduardo, Geandra, Marielle Franco, councilwoman assassinated in March 14th of 2018 in downtown Rio de Janeiro, who came from Maré, were there in the first parade of this Carnival group. You know? This was the first issue. Then another project. Well, how music in Maré mobilizes so many job opportunities for music. I'm smiling because this is it's something that you can see all over Latin America and probably all over the world. The most disenfranchised neighborhoods and slums and so on and so forth are the ones who have music almost from Monday to Sunday, right?
Yeah.
In the case of Maré, sometimes we have events on Monday, which is a dead day for entertainment in major cities and so on. Okay. At Maré, you have events with 2,000 people, you know, like half a mile from one another.
Okay,
So
thanks.
these are,
I think, sorry to cut you off. We have about less than 15 minutes more for discussion. So maybe can
I was
Eduardo
going
continue to answer the question?
make the first
Sorry.
to Eduardo. Eduardo, estão perguntando se as crianças de outras raças também são admitidas no grupo, no Coração de Batuqueiro. E, por exemplo, crianças da sua escola que não são negras. Você pode responder, por favor, em português, and I will translate.
Ok. O Coração Batuqueiro oferece oficinas nas escolas da região. E vem, sim, crianças de outras raças, e a gente atende, mas sempre tentando colocar o foco nas crianças negras. Dar visibilidade e colocar o foco nas crianças negras.
That the project also receives people from other races and offers workshops in schools and so on and so forth. My white grandson, I hope it will join Eduardo initiative and so on. Lucas, eu quero que o meu neto vá para o Corações Batuqueiros. Guardo smiling over there. And
There's another question for Eduardo.
This doesn't change the focus on Black children. So that's how it works.
Yeah. So can Eduardo answer the another question from Victor Damiani? It's both in Portuguese and in English.
Eu li aqui, vou responder a pergunta. Tá, avisa aí, Tomás. O foco, muitas das vezes as pessoas acreditam que o foco e o objetivo é o conteúdo musical, né? Mas o nosso conteúdo, o foco do Coração Batuqueiro é a identidade racial, reforçar para aquela criança preta que ela pode se identificar, que ela deve se identificar como criança negra, como criança preta. Esse é o principal foco. A música é um instrumento para traçar essas reflexões, para traçar esse diálogo e todos aqueles outros pontos que foram abordados na apresentação, né? Sobre autoconfiança, enfim, sobre tudo aquilo.
Yeah. So, Vitor asked, it is written here in English, right? I will just briefly read it. You spoke of dialogue and unity. From that, I ask my question. For the preparation of the pedagogical contents of the workshops/classes, are dialogues developed with the public served by the project? If yes, how is this dialogic construction developed? And so Eduardo said that, as he explained during his presentation, this is a concept that goes beyond the teaching of sound manipulation or music resources, and embodies this sort of cosmological view of music integrated to other realms of human experience. And this is, I should add that this is very much in line with the notion of music, of sound praxis, as we have elaborated throughout the world of musicultura. This is recorded in one book, very influential book in ethnomusicology called Music and Conflict, another co-authored book, another co-authored article by Musicultura. Marcia has also asked the question, how is that program, Musicultura, factored into the program at your university? This seems to be to me and also to Eduardo. Is it perhaps in the case of Eduardo in his school? So I would answer first, Eduardo, depois você pode responder a Márcia. Ela está perguntando em que medida essa perspectiva do Coração Batuqueiro foi integrada à Clovis Monteiro, sua escola. Eu vou começar falando sobre como musicultura é integrada à universidade, né? Well, musicultura now, Marcia, is sort of a constant presence in our School of Music. At the least, we have one yearly event at the School of Music in which Musicultura presents its work regularly. Musicultura has been also the theme of one of our local journals, the Revista Brasileira de Música, the Brazilian Music Journal, which is the oldest in Brazil. So there is a special issue on musicultura. So these are very, I would call them, in face of the potentials of musicultura, a small exposure, let's say, even though it is something constant, something systematic, and something that the institution has acknowledged as its own. You know? But it is still a very small change and so on. This is something that we should pursue. Can we work out really a huge change in epistemological acknowledgement of other epistemologies and so on, under the constraints of capitalism, under the constraints of world market societies and so on? This is something I was discussing together with my colleagues in a seminar this morning. Right? And I don't see it very much in North America and in other places. The other day I was teaching in Austria and so on. I said that people in Austria, I mean, this is the birthplace of a branch of Nazism and so on. And I know that my colleagues are concerned with that, but they aren't able to conceptualize what we do under those terms in macro politics. So I'll end here. Eduardo, como que o Coração de Batuqueiro se é integrado ou não a Clovis Monteiro, as escolas onde você trabalha?
Não é o Coração Batuqueiro que é integrado às escolas onde eu trabalho. Na verdade, a gente tem um princípio que vem desde a metodologia de Paulo Freire, né, passando e perpassando por esses estudos que eu, né, juntamente com os outros 3 diretores do Coração Batuqueiro, temos feito sobre a identidade negra. Então, não é o Coração Batuqueiro que perpassa, somos nós, enquanto indivíduos, dotados da metodologia, dotados desse pensamento, que vamos nos articulando e influenciando nos espaços onde nós vivemos, onde a gente trabalha. Poderia dar um exemplo depois, mas acho legal você traduzir isso, eu falo um pouquinho mais. Tem mais 2 detalhes para.
The first part of his answer was that Coração Batuqueiro is not really integrated into the 2 schools he works in. But he and his collaborators who are pedagogues and so on, anti-racist pedagogues who work at Corações Batuqueiros, keep searching for articulations with local schools. This is something very recent, I should add to Eduardo answer, because they started 4 to 5 years ago, and in 2019 they finally came to a design of how this institution should be at work, right? So this is somehow very new in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and very, I would say, revolutionary, right? And so Eduardo wants to complement that. Eduardo.
Porque às vezes a gente tem conteúdo, como por exemplo, ritmos brasileiros, né? Estou falando da minha prática em específico. E aí, ao invés de pegar o samba de primeira, eu vou pegar algum ritmo, alguma música que ligue a negritude ou ligue o samba à prática africana, como o jongo, né, ou como o batuque, ou como os toques de candomblé. E aí essa visão é que faz uma diferença no final do trabalho. E aí o Coração Batuqueiro contribui porque eu estou vivenciando esses ritmos todos lá, não só o samba, mas todos os ritmos de base, de influência negra.
Well, Eduardo just said he was giving some sort of a practical perspective. For instance, instead of taking the most obvious reference to Afro-Brazilian pedagogies and so on in Rio de Janeiro, samba, he and his collaborators take up less obvious references. For instance, jongo and other practices that can sort of expand the acoustic references of their oh my goodness, their constituency, the people who look for Coração Batuqueiro as a form of introduction to Afro-Brazilian in Afro-diasporic practices. I should say also that Eduardo is also an Afro-Brazilian religious leader here in Rio de Janeiro. So this integrated dimension of music built into ritual, no, Eduardo? Into ritual, into a totality, a conception of the human existence on Earth is something that he has developed through his own experience. This is something different from teaching chung, chung, chung music.
True. Thank you so much, Eduardo. I'm very impressed by your work, and thank you, Samuel, for the translations. The organizers have kindly given us another 10 minutes, so Laishi and I can answer the questions quickly. But the second question by Samuel is sort of related to the discussion so far, so we will end with that, yeah? So very quickly, I'll answer John Perkins' question on, I noticed a brief comment about advocating for the wet market before it was shut down. Could you elaborate on how this advocacy work occurred? Yeah, actually the government, the Penang state wanted to close this Campbell Street market, which is a heritage market, because it was very close to a bigger market. And so they wanted to just focus on the bigger market. But because of protests and so on, you know, and also the work of the children performing and doing research there and finding out about the history of the market, interviewing traders who have worked there for many generations, you know, and performing these stories, yeah. They also perform stories from people who live in the neighborhood who were being moved out of their shop houses to make way for, you know, new cafes and so on. So all these stories, I think, help, you know, the state to decide in the end that the market will continue. So today the market is still running, and you have new types of people coming to the market as a result. So people from outside of the neighborhood are actually coming to use the market now. Yeah, so that's one of the good positive results of this advocacy work. Yeah. Okay, so Samuel's second question is, I'd like to ask both Sri Beng and Chee to what extent all this highly structured way of working with anti-racist pedagogies through participatory strategies has been into institutional practices in terms of protocols and policies. Yeah. I think in my case, I only do this in a non-formal way. So the syllabus is not, music of sound is not part of our university program because the students either major in Western classical music, piano and so on, or they can take a BA general degree, which also has half of the program is about traditional music. And so they play traditional music in the sort of traditional sense, but we have performers, heritage bearers who come in from outside, teaching gamelan and wayang kulit to the students. So for me, this is already a very decolonial aspect in our curriculum. So we have created positions called artistic fellows, yeah, so that we can employ these tradition bearers who don't have any BA or master's degrees to teach in the university. So I think this has been going on for the past 2 decades already. And we can see that, the younger generation now have an interest in learning the tradition besides doing the piano, violin, and whatever. Yeah. So in that sense, it's still very controlled. Yeah. The university is part of the government, and so we have to follow certain policies from the government, like okay, we can only promote Malay traditions now, right? But we try to do other traditions in appreciation classes and also in informal ways. So that's why I was talking about bringing the university students out of the university, to do other things and to meet other people so that they can, cross barriers quickly. Yeah. I think in the case of Chee, it might be a bit different, right? So would you like to comment on that, Chee?
Actually, in my case is that I remember in 2015, our officer in charge of music actually from the Institution of Teacher Education in Malaysia, she actually called us up and said that they wanted to develop a module in teaching arts education. And the module is supposed to integrate arts, music and movements, so that the students, they are able to incorporate arts education in teaching and learning, so that it's a more meaningful experience to all of them. And the officer in charge is also here today with us. He's also listening with us. Patricia Daniel, would you like to say hi? Okay. Yeah. And
hi, everyone.
Yeah, and she's actually the one, I should say, that started this arts education, and she grouped us all together, and I headed the team, and we created the module. So I proposed to them that we should maybe introduce the methodology of music of sound in the module by saying the objectives and how we can help the students for more meaningful learning. So I shared with them the videos that Prof. Tan created. And I think the videos is used in all institutions. We distributed the videos to all institutions. So it started this way. And I think Patricia Daniel also agreed to it. So we developed the module together with our arts team. And then later we had a workshop where we called all the representatives, all the lecturers from different institutions from the 27 institutions across Malaysia to come together to learn about what are the contents in the arts education module. That's how the methodology of music of sound was also introduced and then to them. And then I remembered we called Prof. Tan to share with us your video. And then from there, they shared the contents of the video and then to all the participants. So, and then that's how it disseminates to all the lecturers in all the 27 colleges. So when they go back, they are supposed to share back what they have learned from the workshop and then to them. As this thing gradually increased, and I do conduct a few small research to see how effective it was. Then later in 2018, when I was in the panel for creative activities in music education, that's how I suggest to put methodology of music of sound into the syllabus, and it was approved. And that's how you see now our student teachers, they are collaborating through smart partnerships, and they are creating, besides developing their creativity, indirectly, they also learn how to mix with each other. Okay, and I think the most effective part is integrating music of sound in the appreciation of music Malaysia. Because in appreciation of music Malaysia, we have a syllabus where the students, they learn different types of ethnic cultures, and every time after learning the characteristic, I will make them perform back what they have learned. The characteristics still maintain, but in their own creative style, by integrating, as you can see just now, they can cross ethnic borders, cross stylistic borders. So they learn two in one together. And as they learn to mix, they learn to know themselves, and they also learn to know about confidence in their own intelligence capacities. This because when it started, I have a class I can share with you all. They cannot mix. I was the tutor, and then I told them, one group bring oil, another group bring water, and see whether it will mix or not. It's very difficult. They cannot mix. But I should say that through slowly, patience, perseverance, it does not take weeks, but it takes years, because these student teachers are with us for 5 years. First year foundation and 4 years to complete their bachelor's program. So as gradually when we work together using the methodology of music of sound to create, like the first video clip that you saw, that was the first video clip that break the ice for them. Because you can see the Malay and Indians, they work together. For the first time, they know what is Boria about. And also in the first clip, the first one that you saw are actually ethnic groups from Sabah and Sarawak that know about Boria, but they do not know what is Boria actually. So through their participation, they began to know, and they are supposed to create their own costumes together in creative way using recycled products. That's how we get them to mix together. They have to create the costumes together. They have to work together. And that's where you see people, students with different capacities of intelligences, they learn to work together. Those with visual sense, they created their costumes, helped to create costumes. And those with kinesthetic sense, they help their friends, and then in creative movements. That's how they learn together, and they are empowered, and they feel ownership of what they have learned. And once they felt the ownership of it, they gain confidence. As they keep on working and working together, they began to trust each other. They began to get to know each other better. And I think that's how it sustained until today. And we don't stop there, you see. After they've graduated, I still invite them to our IPG to share some of their performances together, like during Independence Day program, like this year and last year, because it's online. So we get them from different areas in Sabah and Sarawak to group together, to get them work together, to come up with a project of what they've shared with their students and show it to our IPG. And we call it as alumni performances. So we are still in touch and they are still in touch. So this is how we get them together. But I agree that it's not something that you can develop in a few days, but I think it takes many, many, many years and still ongoing. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chee. Thank you, Chee. Very, very excited. Yeah, I think she's really done a lot of work. I think the basic point here is that even if policies change and policies from the top and people in the upper echelon of the education ministry, they change their policies or they change their mindset. Real change on the ground will only take place through years and years of education. So, we've just started the process, but it's already taken, 2 decades to reach this stage. But we need to educate the people at the top. We also need to educate the teachers, and then we need to educate the teacher trainees, in order to do the changes. And they are actually still experimenting with the methodology now. Yeah. We do need people who
I would
fight
say, I would say, Sooi Beng, that more than educate the people in the upper layers of society, we have to do what they have done to most of us. We have to colonize them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, but it takes a very, very long time, and it might not occur during our lifetime, but we have hope. Yeah. I think on that note, we have to end here. Thank you, everybody, for such a stimulating discussion and for sharing all your experiences. We are truly inspired. Yeah, and thank you to CSM for giving us this opportunity to speak. Yeah. So the next, I will give the floor back to Toshio. Yeah.
Thank you, Sooi Beng. Such a great session. Amazing stuff that we've been talking about today. Sorry, I think, we're pretty over time, so I'll keep this short. Tomorrow we have another session happening at 9 p.m. Universal Time. So you'll need to adjust that to your time zone. It's called Engaging Local Knowledge Holders in Teaching the Music of Here. It will be a great session. I'm sure of it. Actually, I've watched some of the videos. They're really great. And we have a couple more coming up on the 23rd and the 24th. We have starting with the syllabus. So critically looking at syllabi and how they affect anti-colonial and anti-racist practices. So thank you all very much, and have a good night.
Yep. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Toshio. I think you can probably just stop recording now. Is that a good idea?